welcome in today, everyone. We, of course, are glad you guys are here joining us again for another Talk It Over. Continuing in this series, the Book of Ruth, which has been so good. I'm very excited to get into these questions. But before we do that, my name, of course, is Ian. I got Dave with me this week. So how has your week been? How have things been going?
It was a great week, but it was a very full week. I was helping out my wife with her camp that she was running.
Yep.
And so working with some little ones all week long, and that's always fun. There's always really good moments in it, but it's tiring.
Yep.
Keeping up with them all week long, kept me on my toes. So
I can believe it.
yeah, there's a good trade-off. And some of these kids have some developmental delays and some other issues. And so it makes it a little bit more demanding.
Yes.
But then there's some really, just really nice moments that you have in there too. And so, it was really good.
Yeah, it seems like we can go to work and work 8-9 hours a day at a job, but put us with a bunch of kids, it can be difficult.
It can be challenging.
It can be quite challenging.
Yes, especially if it's different. I mean, if it's what you do, then you kind of learn how and you learn the kids. And by the end of the week, it becomes easier because you've established a connection with them. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah, week was pretty good, pretty smooth, nothing too crazy. It was just kind of a generic week. Emmett did a camp, the Taekwondo camp, which he was really excited about. Got to do a lot of fun things. Always was saying every night how much fun he had. So really enjoyed that, which was great. So
is he practicing any of his forms on you?
Not so far, not yet.
No.
But yeah, I was working on some of the techniques and patterns and things, and was participating in the juniors class, not the Tiny Tiger side of the camp.
Yeah.
And so he was saying that was quite nice that he was actually with bigger kids and learning a bit more advanced things than he has. So he did enjoy that, which is good because that's the next step for him, is to move completely into the juniors class. So so I know he had a good week. He did have a good week. So
good.
Can't really complain about that. And we got the van looked after, which was kind of nice.
That was actually quite good. I thought it was dead and gone, and Ian resurrected it. So that was good.
Get a little bit more out of it yet. So,
yeah.
No, it was good. So we want to know, guys, how's your week been? How things are going. Maybe it was a fairly smooth week, nothing too crazy, or maybe there's a few little bumps here and there, but whatever that might be, please let us know in the comments. We would love to hear from you guys and just be able to, talk to you and see how things are going. Continuing our Book of Ruth, today's message, of course, was time to define the relationship.
Yes.
Which is, again, a very interesting title. As we go through the questions, a very interesting title. We're going to get our scripture here from Ruth, verse 3. We're going to go to the last one, verse 9. So, I am the servant Ruth, she said, spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are my guardian redeemer of our family. And who she's talking to is Boaz.
Yeah.
As their guardian or kinsman redeemer.
Yeah.
Somebody who would look after the family if their relative passed away. Yeah. They would kind of take over and be that person who would provide for the family.
Yeah.
All right, so do you have something great that happened this week that was just super awesome?
Yeah, I don't know if it was super awesome. Maybe not like Ruth and Boaz level where it's like they've just found themselves.
Yep.
But at the camp, there was a couple times during the week where you just have a really good connection. We had this one little guy who's got autism and it really doesn't engage with his surroundings very well.
Okay.
And is constantly on the move and sometimes, breaking out in terms of yelling or lashing out a little bit. Not violent, but just flailing a little bit. And a couple times when we actually got him regulated and he was doing well, he would engage with you or he would start to sing a song with you. It was a really, really good moment.
Yeah.
And there was another little guy who's not very verbal, struggles with language. And a couple times he would say like, Dave, come sit with me. And you'd be looking at him like, I didn't even know you could say all of that. But he would. And so he was just so focused that he actually was able to kind of get that out.
Yeah.
And maybe with a few vowels missing along the way, but it was close.
Yeah.
And those are just really, really good moments. You're thinking, I'm connecting with these kids. They really need the extra help and support. And it's making a difference for them. So it was good.
Yeah. When you have those breakthrough moments in times where It's been super difficult even for the parents to try to, be able to help and navigate through some of those things, those breakthrough moments.
Yep.
Certainly can make a big difference. And then making it easier as they go home. They've been able to do this, so now, okay, well, I can do this, right? So just that additional knowing that, yeah, making that difference, making that connection can, yeah, certainly, that's a great part of the week for sure.
It is. And you have to put yourself out there to make some of this stuff happen.
Yes.
So for my wife, she's like, I'm going to try this. We're going to start this kind of a camp, and we're going to put some things together, and we're going to see who's interested. You're going to take a risk,
Yep.
and you got to be a little bit forward, right? Show some initiative. And I
Yeah.
know that comes up in the story. Like, you're going to have to take some initiative and move forward. And a lot of times people struggle with that because they don't want to be the one that kind of puts themselves out there in some way. It's scary. You're not sure how it's going to work. It requires extra effort, but you don't get the payoff if you don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't get the benefit. You don't get the good stuff that comes out of it. So for those kids, those really good moments that happened during the week, they would have been missed if Carolyn hadn't put that stuff together and, you know what I mean? Like, made it happen.
Yeah. 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 Sometimes, yeah, taking that initiative sometimes, or, to get things moving is sometimes what needs to happen, because it's not always going to just happen by itself, right? So,
It doesn't. And you may not even do it right. I
yeah.
mean, in the story, what she does is questionable. I don't know if it's right or not.
Yep.
But she was trying. And so you try and you make some mistakes, and that's okay because you're making an effort and things start to move.
Yep.
And God can use that anyway. And so this week, it was nice to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. For me, I think is on the personal kind of healing side of things. Been going to physio now. I think it's been five or six times now.
Yeah.
Suffering from some tennis elbow. Again, causing me to lose some strength in my forearm, lifting and
It's
grasping.
hilarious because you don't play tennis, so that's a hilarious term.
Yeah, it's a funny term.
I've got tennis elbow, but I don't play tennis.
But it's a very relative term. I guess was noticed more, I guess, in that sport. But it's generally repetitive movement with a lot of forcing grip and strength in holding stuff.
Yep.
And so, of course, my job is a lot of that. So I started to notice some loss of grip, loss of arm strength, things that were changing, and I couldn't really pinpoint it. And then one morning, my elbow was just like super painful, and it just hurt to move my arm. So at that point, I was like, okay, I need to maybe look into this a little further. And it turns out it's tennis elbow. And so now with these, 5, 6 times I've been, we've been doing some kind of, I would say, deep muscle tissue massage first, then some needling. So it's almost like acupuncture-ish kind of idea.
Yep.
And then some laser therapy as well, just to kind of promote the healing process to be a little quicker.
Yeah.
But the needling part, when he's poking the needle and hitting like the muscles and my fingers are twitching and moving, it is weird.
Yeah.
Because I'm not doing it. It's a little weird. But having some breakthrough with it, I'm noticing less pain in my arm, which has been really good. And starting to get back a little bit more of the grip strength, a little bit more of the arm strength. Still, of course, I have to be careful that I don't overwork it as it's in the healing process. But certainly starting to notice some difference, which has been really good, because I'm trying to get it back to the mend of where it was beforehand, so I can get back to kind of a full use of my arm and hand. So, yeah, it's been good. It's been good. We got a ways to go yet with it, but
progress.
We're progressing in a good direction. So very, very happy with that. That was a great part of the week, was just be able to do that. So really, really enjoying that, and getting into that direction. So yeah, lots of parts of this message, really, really good. Was there one that was really impactful for you this week, Dave?
I don't know that there was one. There's a few that kind of come up in the questions that I thought were really interesting. I guess, again, I'm just reminded of that "it just so happened" that Craig mentioned. And it comes up again, right? It just so happened. And how God uses kind of the circumstances of life to line things up.
Yes. To
get to where you need to go. And it's God having his hand on it without it being some huge, obvious miracle. And so I love that. I love that, again, the story continues and God's hand is still directing things as it goes.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty amazing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And for me, I like that because it's a good reminder to be paying attention in my own life for those moments that are happening.
Yep.
Don't miss them.
Yeah, because they can be kind of small.
They can be. But when you stop and reflect on it, and we talked about this as a church, like tell the story. Don't just give me the result, tell me
Yep.
the story, because it's in the story that you actually begin to see how God directed things. Like, whoa, that shouldn't have happened. And the
Yep.
fact that it lined up with this, that's impossible.
Yep.
And yet it did. And then you see God's hand a little bit more clearly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, again, yeah, we've discussed it as a church, but this idea of storytelling.
Yeah.
Because in those moments of when we're discussing these stories and things that have happened throughout our lives,
Yeah.
it certainly starts to bring up key points through that story where it was like, yeah, God intervened here and changed the direction to navigate us to a different point. And I firmly believe we need to continue to talk about those stories,
Yeah.
whether they're very big or small, whatever it might be, because we tend to forget. It's so easy for us to forget those moments and
It
lose
is.
that time of reflecting on them
Yeah.
and reflecting on them with people that maybe were involved in that time of, that season of life. And yeah, I think it's a great way for us to continue to remember all those little points where God was involved
Yeah.
throughout our lives, because yeah, it is so easy to forget.
Which is in the scriptures over and over, where God says, remember, remind yourselves, talk about it,
Yep.
because we do forget so quickly.
Yep.
And then you can get into that whole, which I hate, that what have you done for me lately?
Yeah, yeah. I haven't seen you.
If you haven't
Yeah.
seen, then nothing else matters anymore.
Yep.
And maybe sometimes we have relationships like that where all the stuff you've done to serve somebody in the past is kind of like, well, you haven't done anything recently that I can remember, so they blow you off.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And how hard that can be, which we're going to talk about defining the relationship, but that's probably a big part of it.
Yeah, definitely is. Oh, yeah, there was a lot of good points in the message today. But I think the one that stood out to me was this idea of we may not always get it right, but God can still make it right.
Yeah.
This idea that, sometimes we're doing our best to do the right thing, but sometimes it doesn't always turn out to be exactly the right thing.
Yeah.
But God can still use that and make it right in that way, right? And again, we talked about that with Ruth and Boaz, and seeming to be kind of forward for her in approaching Boaz, and maybe kind of looks a little bit suspicious, or maybe not as godly as it could be.
Yeah.
Um, but then God can use that in a different way to try to make that kind of a situation better later on. So
Yeah. The
it,
fact that just because we've done something wrong doesn't mean we're disqualified or God's like, I'm out of here.
yep,
There are lots of times where God's still going to be involved,
yep,
still going to bring about a good result. It's not a guarantee,
no,
but because he's got so much grace and he leads with grace, he does.
yep, he
He
does.
shows up
He
anyway.
does. And that makes a huge difference, because sometimes I think we try to get ourselves focused on we got to do like we have to be right,
Otherwise, we're done.
and we're so focused on getting right, I think we can miss some of the opportunities to help and serve because we're trying to be right. And we kind of bypass that. We get almost those blinders and just kind of we have to be right, and everything else just kind of gets, pushed off to the side,
Yeah.
and we miss out on other opportunities to, show God to other people or to serve them in some way because we're trying to do things just exactly right.
Has to be exactly right. And yet, as Craig likes to say, that people don't connect with us in our perfection, they connect with us on our failures and our weaknesses.
Yeah.
And that's really what was going on, is we get to connect with these characters because of their flaws and their weaknesses.
You get to see them as not a perfect person, but somebody who's trying to do the right thing and trying to
Yeah.
do what God's asking them, but
Doing
it
the
doesn't
best they
always get
can.
right, right?
Yeah.
So
And Craig shared some stories about that
He
even
did.
from his own life,
yeah,
which is good, right? Like, I'm not perfect. Here's when I've messed it up.
yeah,
It reminds me of another part he talked about, though, which is that oftentimes in the Bible, something can be descriptive rather than prescriptive. And so
yes,
it's telling you what happened, but it's not telling you that's the way you should do it.
yes. That was a good point that Craig did make. Because
So,
sometimes, yeah, if you don't have some of those like descriptive pieces that are just describing this is what happened,
yep,
it doesn't mean that it's right or the right way, but this is how it happened.
this is how it happened. And so when God shows up anyway,
Yep,
you get to see God's grace.
yep,
But I know it can be easy for people to say, well, it's in the Bible, so that's the way you're supposed to do it.
Yes.
But the Bible gives us all the wrong ways that people have done it through the years too,
Yep.
because they're explaining it to you and helping you to see and learn from other people's experiences.
Yes.
And yeah, that's where if you cherry pick, spots of the Bible, you can pull any verse and using it out of context means it wasn't giving you this is the way you should do it.
Yep.
It was telling you this is how someone did it.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you can pull things out and say, oh, this is what it said, so this is how we should do it. This is right. And then you go back to it again. You're pulling things that aren't, they're not meant to be the way. They're just telling you the story.
What happened?
It's just an account of this is what happened.
Yeah, that was good.
All right. So kind of with that idea, as we navigate different seasons of life, we don't, of course, always get it right as we go through those seasons. So is there a time that you want to share about when you didn't make the best choice, but God still made it right? And what did you learn about him through that experience?
Oh my goodness. I've had so many times where I have not got it right. Could be relationally.
Yep.
I remember I went through a time with a friend where I just didn't handle it well. We tried to kind of work an issue through and didn't handle it very well and actually broke the relationship. And yet we were able to reconcile that later and are good friends today after having worked that through.
Yep.
And so God thankfully restored that. But you realize at the time you're kind of trying to do the best you can, but you don't always do a great job. And so I know in that relationship, I did not do a great job with that. I could have been wiser. I would have done it much differently now.
Of course, yeah.
But at the time I thought, well, it's what I think I need to do.
Yep.
And God was so good that even though I, made those mistakes, that he restored that friendship. And it's really good now how God has kind of brought things around, but it could have been lost.
Yeah, could have been. Yeah,
could have been gone.
Easily.
Could have been gone, and it would have been my fault and my friend's fault together. But God really brought things around, so it was good.
Oh, seasons of life. Yeah, there's so many different seasons, right?
Yeah.
As we navigate through different points in life, I think for me was again relationship, and dating this girl and. They always tell you to listen to the people, and I discussed this last week with my wife about listening to the people around you.
Yeah.
How are they influencing? What does that look like? And Craig talked about it as well. If the parents don't like the person, the siblings don't like the person, your dog doesn't like the person, there's kind of a clear sign
there's a flag there. Yeah.
There's a flag that you should be paying attention to, because these people that are in your life are the ones that are trying to help you, keep you safe, help you to make better choices.
Yeah.
And I decided that I didn't want to listen to any of that. And it went down, it went to a negative place, somewhere where it brought me down, making me feel less of myself, that I wasn't enough, I shouldn't, and it got me into really bad headspace, separated, then wanted to get back together. And at that point, I don't know what it was. I think now it might have been God intervening and telling me, stop. This needs to stop. It's not healthy.
Yeah.
And I just kind of took that stance of no, I don't need that. I don't need that in my life. It was negative. It was bad. It was emotionally draining.
Yeah.
And said no to that. And through that, I actually met my wife. It's actually quite interesting how that all kind of played out.
Yeah.
I had a summer to myself, about 4 months, and I just kind of was doing myself, allowing myself to get back to things that I enjoyed, that I had lost over that time. And it kind of prepared me for the next stage to know what was healthy, what was a healthy relationship, what was good for me as well for her. And it just, looking back at it now, as she said, I would have done it totally different. I would have been like, okay, my parents are on something here. I need to stop this sooner. But seeing God working through that now, looking back, of course, it's like, no, God was making it to the point it got so bad that I had to make a change. Like it had to make a change. And then directing me in a very different direction, and meeting my wife, and now I'm here. So again, it would have been a very different direction. So seeing those minor changes of how things all went, and finally having that moment of this needs to change, and the family again encouraging me that this is the right thing to do,
Yeah.
certainly made a big difference. So yeah, it's interesting. But then moving past that,
Yeah.
in later seasons of life, it's helped me to listen to the people more around me, in directions of, oh, this is what I'm thinking of doing, but actually taking time to listen and not just kind of rhetorically asking the question, I guess. I'm going to put it out there, but I really don't want to answer.
Because it's
Right?
not like just because they tell you something, you're going to do it.
No,
Like your
no.
parents say this, or your friends or siblings say this, so you're going to do it. But you need to actually seriously consider it. There's a reason
Yeah,
why they're saying those
yeah,
things.
yeah.
And so, yeah, giving it more consideration.
As they're speaking, especially people that you trust, that have influence, that
Yeah.
are around you, make that big difference, because a lot of times it's easy to dismiss what they're saying because sometimes you may not want to hear it.
Yeah.
But for me now, no, I take into consideration what people are telling me around me, because I'm like, no, there's a reason they're telling me this.
Yeah.
So let's kind of sit down and think about
Yeah.
why they're telling me this. What's the reason they're telling me this? So
Yeah. That's good.
certainly makes big differences. All right, guys, I'm going to leave you with a question again, from today. So sometime God wants us to go after what we want.
Mm.
Is he calling you to take a step of faith and go after something?
Mm.
So whatever that might be, maybe that's a step in your faith, taking a step from just being here to maybe actually serving.
Yeah.
Stepping into something and serving God in some way and the people around you. Maybe it's taking a step in the next direction, like me, moving out of something that's not healthy, taking a step into something that's better. Whatever that might be, but I'll leave that with you guys. I encourage you, if you're not in a life group of some form, you can start one. You two friends get together and discuss these questions, or take it to somebody who's trusted to you, that you can talk to, and know they have your best interests at heart, and discuss them. Is there some step you need to make, something change you need to make, because those are always done better with people in your life.
Yeah.
So we, of course, want to thank you guys again. We've come to the end here. We want to thank you for joining us again for another Talk It Over. We, of course, want to thank the tech team behind us as they get this stuff all ready for you guys each and every week. And we, of course, want to remember, whoever finds God finds life.